We'll get started in 2 minutes, so 3:35. Okay, hi everyone. We're gonna get started now. Um, so I'm Wesley. I'm gonna be hosting, and this is the Mathpath Student Experience Seminar. We're super grateful today to be joined by Prof. D and April. Hey, long time no see. And first, I just want to start off by giving a brief description of my experience at Mathpath, and pretty much what I thought was good about it, and what was special about it for me. So I attended Mathpath in the summer of 2023. So right now I'm a sophomore, so that would be the summer of eighth grade for me, and the summer going into high school. Um, and I didn't really know what to expect when I first applied, but then I definitely did not regret it when I went. So hopefully I can share with you guys some of that same excitement I got. So let's get started. So for MathPath, obviously, guys, it's a math camp. So let's talk about the math first. First up, we're talking about the plenaries. So there's 3 plenaries per day. Um, at least there was in MathPath 2023. And these are pretty much just like talks. They're around an hour, um, talking about math history, mathematical writing, and then one plenary from a guest speaker. So every day, each of these 3 plenaries will take place. Math history is going to be talking about like ancient mathematicians and types of innovations they made in math and where we got our current day math um, from all of the great mathematicians of the past. Personally, it's a lot more interesting than like American history, which is what I'm learning in school right now. And then we got a guest speaker, which will talk about all sorts of different things. They will talk about something that they enjoy or something that they want to share with all of the campers. It can range from anywhere from like hardcore math to just like exploratory, really fun stuff. Um, and then finally, we got the mathematical writing plenary, which will focus on looking at the problem set, the qualifying test problems, and then looking at responses that were submitted by students, and then talking about proofwriting and how we can convey our thoughts for math in a very concise and eloquent way. So that definitely helps with writing proofs um, for the future. And the guest speaker, there's a variety of interesting topics, like I mentioned. So one of my favorites was called Pi Sometimes 4. Uh, and pretty much this one, just to give an example, talked about how pi is defined in a very specific way in our normal geometry system, how what we're used to, Euclidean geometry. But if we change the different ways we define distance in a space, then we can get different values for pi based on the same definition. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, that's the type of topics we talk about in these plenaries. Um, yeah, and here's some photos from my year. And then after the plenaries, personally, I think my favorite piece of math during Mathpath were the breakouts. So these are more similar to like classes, classroom style classes. And there are two breakouts per day. There's the morning and afternoon breakout. The morning breakout is, I think, shorter because it runs for 5 days, while the afternoon breakout only runs for four. And again, these are taught by counselors and staff. So the topics are interesting and niche and aren't just like algebra 2 or like pre-calc or um, stuff like that. There are classes that focus specifically on like math fundamentals and that type of standard um, like building your skills for math. But most of the courses are like very niche topics. For example, some of my favorites during my year at MathPath were spherical trig, taming the torus, which is about the torus, which is like a donut-shaped 3D object, and then special relativity and generating functions. So these were all like ideas that I had no idea existed before I came to MathPath. And maybe I was just an outlier and a little uneducated, but I think that these topics were really, really interesting and stuff that you wouldn't find in like a school setting. So that's one thing I really loved about the breakouts. Um, the breakouts also have a lot of different skill levels. So if you're worried about you or your child not fitting into the breakouts because they don't meet the requirement, or you don't think they have a high enough competition score, or you think they're going to be too good for it, I don't think you should worry because there's a bunch of different skill levels offered in the breakouts. And in the end, it's not about how good your child is. I think it's more about the process of discovery during these breakouts. And yeah, so as I mentioned, some of them are more rigorous and in-depth, and other ones are more just like an overview to get your mind working. And here's some photos from the breakouts. As you can see, there's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of working together. And these are my notes from the breakouts. Um, they're not pictures of the breakouts, but I wanted to show them because I thought they looked really good. Okay, so next up, what we're talking about math is the problem of the day, or the pod as we call it. And this is a daily problem that's proposed by faculty and counselors every day. So every day, the pod's going to be proposed around noon, and then all the campers will have a full day to write up their solution and solve the problem. So it's optional if you want to do the pod, but most campers end up trying at least one during their stay at MathPath. Um, and the person whose solution is the best and is deemed the most concise, the most correct, they'll get to present their solution to everyone, and they'll win a prize. And personally, I like the pod, not because it was like a way um, for me to keep math on my brain. And although I didn't feel like I had to do it every day because it's always optional, um, I did end up doing it most days because I liked the challenge and it gave me something to think about while I wasn't really doing anything. So it really inspired me to find creative solutions to problems because a lot of the pod problems aren't just like competition problems or that type of find the answer and that's the main goal. It's more problems that you have to think a lot in different ways. And there's always different approaches to it. So sometimes the best solution isn't just the person that solves it, but the person that solves it like in the most beautiful way. Um, and yeah, so these are some of my pod write-ups. Um, this picture on the bottom right, like the 3D cube thing, that took me like an hour. But yeah. Um, so as you can see, it's very like it's a proof style. Um, it's a formal write-up, and so it's also a good way to practice the things you learned from the the mathematical writing plenaries. And that's a picture from the presentation of the pod from the winners. Okay, and now let's talk about some of the non-math activities that are offered. Um, so we'll start with free time. So there are two free periods every day, one in like the afternoon and then one closer to the evening. And these free periods aren't like free time. It's not like, okay, go around and do whatever you want. It's that counselors basically they host activities that they think are going to be fun, and then all the campers can sign up for an activity that they want to participate in during that free period. So for example, we could have and every day the free period activities may be different based on what counselors are offering what. So there could be like my favorites were volleyball, basketball, ultimate frisbee, movies, and playing pool. So you always have a lot of options to choose from when it's free time based on what you want to do or what you're in the mood for that day. Um, Personally, I a lot of the time I didn't sign up for any activities, and my friends and I just stayed in the building and played pool with each other. And we actually did that so much that when I got home, um, like I realized I gotten much better at pool by playing against my friends, and that's pretty funny. And then another thing that we did was we rehearsed for our talent show performance instead of signing up for activities. That's just a personal choice, of course, because my friends and I thought it would be really fun to dance to a K-pop song at the talent show. So we started rehearsing a lot during our free time. But yeah, so as you can see, there's a lot of different options, even though it's not like you can do whatever you want. Here's some of the pictures. That's Ultimate Frisbee, and this is just chilling, I think. Oh, and then this was the marathon that we organized. So during my year, they organized the Mathpath 23 marathon or 5K. And basically whoever wanted to could participate and run or walk the 5K. And it was overall just a really good time. Okay, so apart from free time, there are other ways to have non-math fun on weekends. So every weekend, there's always one big group field trip, and then there's always a field trip in small groups where you get to choose who you want to go with to what location. So the big group field trip is going to be predetermined. Um, so all of the campers together are going to go on a field trip to like a characteristic location around the area. So for us, since we were in Portland, Oregon, during my year, we went to like Howell's Bookstore, Cannon Beach, and these were like landmarks in the area that are like, if you're a tourist, this is what you would want to visit. So those were always really fun. And then the other day of the weekend, we'd go on a small group field trip. So different locations would be offered. Um, and then just like the activities, you would sign up for whichever field trip you wanted to go on. So for example, I went to bowling and laser tag, and those were some of my favorites. But you can also sign up for ice skating or something else. There's a lot of different options, and you can sign up for whichever one you want to go to. And another thing to mention is that weekends are not on Saturday and Sunday, but Sunday and Monday. That's just a cool little fact. It doesn't really matter. And then here's some of the pictures. This left one was bowling, and this other one was a big group trip to Cannon Beach. This is another big group trip, and then this one was when we went to bowling in the small trips. And okay, so now because we've talked about all of the activities, math related and non-math related, I want to talk about why MathPath is special and not just like a random math enrichment camp that you can send your child to. So I think that a big part of it is the environment. It's not filled with like intense, really, really ultra nerdy guys that don't know like socialization or anything like that. Um, all of the campers and counselors are math lovers, but they're all really unique and they're all really interesting. They're all kind, they're supportive, and they're all just really good people to be around because part of the admissions process is looking at who you are as a person. Are you an interesting person? Do you have other hobbies other than math? Like, what type of person are you? So because of that, the people that you get are so colorful and aren't just like their sole personalities working on math. And I made a lot of close friends during the camp that I'm still in contact with today, even like almost 2 years later. Um, and it's also not just a math camp, um, because it's not super nerdy. It's not like wake up, eat breakfast, work on math, eat lunch, work on math, and then go to sleep. It's like there's a great combination between doing math and having fun. So you can never get bored of either one. And I also learned to think creatively, not just learn more math skills. So rather than coming out of the camp just having learned more about math, I learned about how to think about math. And I think that's something that was really valuable, because it kind of revived my love for math, and allowed me to keep like brainstorming and keep having that sort of spark in my mind wherever I went and seeing math everywhere in the world. And is that it? No, there's one more slide. I say that you should join if you're someone that's interested in math, um, and the curiosity matters more than your skill level. While I was there, there were people of a bunch of different skill levels. It was all over the place. Some people were really, really smart. Some people were more like casual math enjoyers, but it didn't matter. We all had fun, and nobody felt like excluded because they were too good or they were because they weren't as good. And we had and I had a really good time exploring math beyond competition math. So if your child has done like a lot of competition math problems like the AMCs and the AMY, um, it's a really good way to see what's beyond the horizon after just like grinding out competition problems. And if you want to have a month of fun, of course, then you should join. And that's it for the student experience presentation part. Um, April or Prof D, if you want to add anything, feel free. But now I'd like to open up the chat to questions. So you guys can start sending in your questions. But I'd like to emphasize before you send in your questions, we won't be answering any questions related to personal admissions or personal applications or anything related to like the too focused on like the application process, as the seminar is supposed to be for the student experience. So if you have questions you want to know about the camp itself and what it's like being in the camp, then we'd love to hear from you. And I'm going to hand it off to Ethan, who's going to be handling the Q&A right now.
Thank you, Wesley, for giving us a nice presentation on what like a day in the camp would look like. And it seems like you've not only improved your math skills, but you've also improved on how you think about math, and you've also made a lot of friends, and you've also improved your pool skills as well. And yeah, we'll now be opening the floor to questions. And okay, let me.
So I
Ethan,
think
can I?
if we can, yeah,
Yeah,
I think both Prof T and I are going to have some things we want to like
yeah,
clarify about some things that Wesley said. So you can go
yeah.
first, Prof T.
Thank you. Wesley, you did a great job presenting all of that, and it was super fun to have you at camp playing basketball with you. And that talent show act was one of the best. I still remember it fondly. So good job. Yeah, just Wesley did a nice job explaining essentially that academically MathPath is an enrichment camp, not an acceleration camp. So the goal isn't to get you to some further place along math, but to give you a much more well-rounded math education. That's why we have the history plenaries and watch movies about math and have the writing plenaries and things like that. And also, I think he did a nice job of emphasizing it is a math camp fundamentally, but it's also very intentionally a whole person development camp. April and her team and the senior staff does a great job of caring for the students as people. And so that's super important. I just wanted to nuance a couple things there. Wesley said, sorry, my cat is just now jumping up. Yeah, as far as the breakouts, we definitely have some standard breakouts so that if your knowledge in certain areas, if you haven't acquired knowledge in certain areas yet that are kind of fundamental, then you'd have an opportunity to do that here. But
不
you
认识我是
could
谁是谁啊？那王他妈这么多，好多叫王的。
but you could also build on that in these more niche directions, as Wesley said. And the instructors that we hire are all really great at working with this age group, and many of them also are award-winning, locally, nationally, internationally award-winning teachers. As far as the level of breakouts, I think Wesley mentioned this. I would emphasize that these faculty and other staff that teach these courses do a really good job of being able to provide extensions. So I know sometimes a student will come into a class and find, oh, I got the homework done today, and I want to keep thinking about this even further, and they'll get really interested. And so sometimes some of our colleagues have like cutting edge research problems that they'll give to a student, and they can keep thinking about that if they would like. I wanted to mention a slight change on how we are implementing and talking about the problem of the day. So since you've been there, Wesley, we don't have a winner anymore, so to speak. We have an exemplar that presents a good solution. That's a slight shift in language, but also more importantly, everybody who submits a correct problem of the day response gets a small prize each day, and we accumulate those prizes in service to a camp goal, like an ice cream party or something like that. So we're looking at the PODs as also a community event, not just an individual thing that we hope people are interested in. I guess the last thing I would say, and then April can say more about this and whatever else she wants to add, but the writing plenary this year is gonna, the format is gonna change a little bit to sort of merge into, again, these bigger goals about whole person development and mathematical development. So we're going to be thinking about it as communication, but also collaboration and culture. Communication, collaboration, and culture. And so in addition to talking about writing, we're going to talk about how we collaborate as mathematicians. What's the culture of mathematics like, and how do we each fit into it? So great job, Wesley. Thank you for letting me add in a few things. And then April, you can take it from there.
Yeah, thanks, Prof. T. So I think Wesley did a really good job explaining like the group experience. So my role at Mathpath as camp director is to take care of the like fun sorts of things, and Prof. D's role is to take care of the math sorts of things. Not that the math isn't fun, mine is the fun non-math things. So Wesley's examples of activities, those were specific to what we had available to us at Wesley's year, which was in Portland. And this year we're going to be in Massachusetts. If you want more information, you can go to our website, and there's answers to any standard question available through perusing our website, including like site dates, etc. So those activities are based on the region, and they might be a little bit different. And also the activities that happen day to day, those are different based on what's available at our university. So volleyball and basketball were easily available at in Portland. I don't know exactly what's going to be available yet where we are this summer, but we always try to mix in both athletic activity and also some more leisure activities. So one of the photos I think Wesley showed was, I think, laying in the grass was the title of the activity, but I think there was like, you know, stretching and music going on. Sometimes we have arts and crafts activities like crocheting, Mobius strips or like doing weaving projects. And also, if you come to Mathpath and you have an idea for an activity, you can propose it to a counselor who can then run the activity. And examples of that would be, we had a big karaoke surge. I think it was Wesley's year, actually. There was a big interest in karaoke. And so that's an example of an activity that was sort of like student initiated, that took on a lot of popularity.
And now we'll be starting questions. First of all, about the electronics. So do students have to bring their own like laptop and or like some camps they don't allow electronics, like there's some non-electronic camps. Are they allowed to bring them, and are they allowed to use them in their free time?
So you can read information about this on our website, but in general, actually, it's a non-electronics camp. So we strongly discourage the bringing of electronics. Of course, you have to bring something to call your parents because we want you to be able to call your parents, but those devices are held by the counselor except for during phone call time, which is about 15 to 20 minutes every day. For classes that require technology, we provide the technology in order to make that happen. And there would be opportunities to use technology during a free time activity. For example, a counselor will open, we have a mobile Chromebook lab. So a counselor could open the mobile Chromebook lab for purposes of email communication, or, I mean, maybe you have like a homework assignment that you need to type up. So you could use that time to do that. And we have a pretty thorough philosophy about this that is on our website. I'll try to look for it when we're asking the next question, then put it in the chat, a link to it. But the idea is that what we want is for students to be like fully immersed in the experience of MathPath. And we have found that electronic devices just like really can isolate students. And I know we hear about how electronic devices can bring us together, and we understand that. We think that's great, but we think the purpose of MathPath is to like be on the ground with 100 other kids who love math like you do. And that's a kind of opportunity that you don't get very often. So non-electronics primarily, some exceptions, but the nitty-gritty of all that's not super important for this seminar, I think.
Next question, like what is the rooming situation? For instance, in like Wesley's year, he said he got his own room, but campus changes every year. So yeah, like what's the rooming situation?
Yeah, we usually try to do everyone in their own room. It depends on what we have available. I think this year we're trying again to have everyone in their own room.
Wait, so like what happens if everyone doesn't get their own room though? So do they have to share then?
So we haven't had to have people sharing rooms in a long time. Like I think it's been 3 or 4 years, and before that it was like 10 years when people had to share rooms. And it was sort of like the time that it happened more recently, I sort of like asked people to volunteer, and we got enough volunteers. So that, because it wasn't like everybody needed to. I don't think that it will happen though. We try to keep everyone in their own room.
Yeah, I see. Also, like, what qualities are in a math path camper are like valued? Like, for instance, like kindness, like people, you don't want kids that are very nerdy, you know, like besides mathematical ability.
Well, okay, we have nothing against nerdiness. I think Wesley said not everybody's nerdy. I think different people have different definitions of that. So there are people who come to MathPath who are like speed cubers, for example, and I think some people might define that as nerdy. But but not all 100 people are speed cubers, right? And not all 100 people are scoring 15 on the Amy, and not all 100 people are, I don't know, I can't think of another. Not all 100 people are all-star basketball players, but there's some of that from everybody. So what we're looking for is like a diverse population of experiences, of personality traits, of qualities to come together, and who, like, people who are committed to loving math and learning a lot of math and being a good citizen part of our like strong community.
So like the community's like very colorful, right?
Sure, yeah. And I think maybe Prof D could have something else to say about that.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite parts about the camp is that we have 11-year-olds up to sometimes even 70-year-olds, all of whom are gathering with our shared love of math, but there's so many other differences in almost every way. And I think, you know, you mentioned kindness. I think it's really important to us, and April and her team works really hard to help create a community that is community oriented, not just self-oriented. And so kindness is a big part of that. I don't know if Ethan, you were going to use Alyssa's question as a different question, but I'll just pull it in here because Alyssa asks about whether this camp is fundamentally for people who participate in math competitions. And I would say definitely not. There are definitely quite a few people who come who are very interested in math competitions, and we do try to have some courses that are oriented towards that interest, but most of our courses are not oriented specifically towards that interest. And among our counselors and staff and faculty, some of us really loved math competitions and some of us really didn't love math competitions, but all of us, I think, believe strongly that competition isn't the central element of mathematics. That's not the driving interest that brings us to mathematics. So if you get an interest in math through the door of competitions, that's great. But there's people who come in through other doors, and together we just celebrate each other and mathematics.
Yeah. Also, do you guys take seniority into account for picking students for the camp? Like, for instance, can a fifth grader apply? Like, like older students usually apply to more, so that's why you usually have more eighth graders than like fifth graders. So, uh, like, would you take seniority into account?
So I think you're asking about the admissions process. I'm a little unclear about the question. The idea is to have a balanced camp that is for students age 11 to 14. So there have been years, especially immediately after the pandemic, when our applicant pool was skewed older because those 13 and 14-year-olds had not yet had a chance to attend an overnight camp. We're several years out from the pandemic now, so our applicant pool is more spread back to what it was like before the pandemic. I can say on average, it's sort of like a bell curve. We have the most 13-year-olds and then slightly fewer 12-year-olds and then slightly fewer 14-year-olds and then slightly fewer 11-year-olds. In terms of the admissions process, which is not really what this seminar is supposed to be about, we're looking for qualities of the applicant that we would expect to be developmentally appropriate. And developmentally appropriate has a lot of different definitions, and I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty here, but like an 11-year-old in calculus or an 11-year-old who like broadcasts that they do really well in contest math might be like their application will be viewed through that lens, as opposed to an 11-year-old who's in fifth grade math, who's never seen some things that we would have expected an 11-year-old who maybe has seen some of those other things to have seen. So we try to take that into account in our application evaluation, and we're looking for curiosity, persistence, values that we hold highly in our community. That's what we're looking for in the application. So if you're 14 and it's your last possible chance to come to Mathpath, do we give you an advantage over an 11 or 12-year-old? No, but if you're 14 and you demonstrate a much higher qualities that we value than other peer 14-year-old applicants, would we give that a boost? Maybe, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Also like about the admissions process, like how many campers are there in total, and do any people like to return to the camp because it's very fun and people learn a lot from it too?
Yeah, so we Returners have to apply just like anyone else, and they have to get in merit-based, same application. However, having attended Mathpath, they sort of know what the values are and they've had a successful application before. So in general, a returner, like the percent success of returning applicants is slightly higher than the percent success of a brand new applicant, but that's just numbers based. People, also some returners do not have successful applications because, you know, we have to judge all the application materials fairly. I would say we have a high returner reapplication percentage, considering that you have to start from the ground and do an entirely new application every year. I think from year to year, we have anywhere from 20 to 30% returning campers in the population. So like who actually come to Mathpath, 20 to 30% of them will be returners. And total number of students who are coming to Mathpath is around 110, give or take.
Yeah. And also, what is one good sentence that would describe the math path overall? So, and like some good words too.
Do you want to answer it, Prof. D?
I'm not sure the intent of the question, Ethan.
So like one good sentence that would describe the camp as a whole, like
To what audience? To this audience?
to people applying.
It is a whole lot of fun and a whole lot of math, and it makes you a whole lot of tired, but almost everybody as they leave are sadder to be going than they were sad when they arrived and were leaving their home. It's you know, even the adults, many of us come back year after year just because it's a highlight of the year. That was probably 2 sentences. I can't count. Sorry, Ethan.
And
I just want to
also, oh
I
yeah,
just want
sorry.
to interject. Yeah. So Prof D mentioned that a lot of people are like sadder when they leave the camp than when they're leaving home. And I can definitely attest to that. I remember when I was when we were leaving camp on the last day after like a fun night, um I saw a lot of people crying. I started crying. Lots of hugs were going around. So yeah, I think I can say that a lot of like deep bonds were definitely being built throughout the camp, and people were definitely really sad to leave. Just want to say something. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think I also can say that I think universally, at least at 90%, maybe higher, probably higher, individuals who are present at Mathpath, so this is including counselors, this is including faculty and students, have a life-changing experience in some way. And I mean, they learn something profound about themselves. They make a connection with somebody that they never would have made that endures for years or forever. And yeah, including myself. And I've been doing it for, I don't know, 18 or 19 years. And I would say every single year I experience some kind of life-changing thing.
Also, how many like can parents visit their children because they might get worried because they might be a little overprotective, kind of strict?
So our policies about this are on our website, but I'll try to give a little overview. So we don't allow students to have off-campus visits, like to leave campus without a Mathpath staff member present, except in the case of an emergency or some kind of situation like that, or like predetermined something or other. So exceptions, I'm not going to talk about exceptions. So in general, students are not allowed to leave campus. If parents want to visit, they have to arrange the visit in advance by at least 2 days, depending on what time of day and like what part of the week we're in. All the rules are going to be in our pre-camp briefing, which we send to everybody who's admitted. And the visit has to be on campus, outside, and there has to be a Mathpath staff member sort of like supervising is not exactly right, but technically the child cannot leave the custody of Mathpath. So a parent could come visit their child, but there has to be a Mathpath staff member close enough to be technically still in custody of the child while the child's having the visit with their parent. And we usually kind of discourage visits because what we really want is students to be fully immersed in the community, and outside visits take a kid away from an activity that they would otherwise have been participating in. They can kind of like other a student in seeing like, oh, your parents came, or oh, you got this present, or oh, why is that guy here or that woman here? You know, those sorts of things. So we let it happen, of course, like for the parents that are in this session, they're your kids, so we have ways for you to have access to them. But we really think that the community experience that we're building is really essential to the growth and the intention of the camp. So if you're not prepared to let your student go for 4 weeks, MathPath's probably not right for your family.
Wait, but like, what if there's something really important, like your cousin's wedding, or your let's say you have like a really important basketball game?
So those would all be considered like exceptions, and you'd have to ask about them individually, and we consider them individually, and we don't grant very many exceptions. I would like a funeral is an example of something we would grant an exception for. And I don't want to list them all because that's like nitpicky and not for this session.
Also, do you sort like some students by age or ability? Because usually in school, you don't skip a grade unless you're like really smart. And but so they usually sort you by grade by age, but but in Mathpath, it sounds like you might have also been sorted by ability as well. So
So MathPath's not sorted by ability, and it's also not really sorted by age in terms of the mathematic experience that a student would have. So the housing is divided up, and so you're divided into a counselor group, and that is based on age and gender identity. And some of that is like state laws and whatever. So you will be moving around, and your assigned counselor, who's assigned to you in a group of other kids, those would be kids about your age. In terms of the math, that's self-selected, and so the faculty will give a description of the course, and you decide what is the right course for you based on the description that's provided for the course. Usually students do a pretty good job self-selecting, and when they're not doing a good job self-selecting, Prof D is there as a resource who can help you kind of like realign your choices if you need to do that.
Yeah, and we have a lot of really excellent and interesting classes in any given time slot. So there's a lot to choose from. Even so, sometimes certain classes are more popular than the room size can accommodate. So what April's referring to there, we call show and tell. Prior to each week, we have about an hour, hour and a half process where the faculty give a show and tell about the upcoming courses, and students, I wouldn't say they get to pick which class they're in, but they get to give us a preference ranking that we use to generate the class lists. And it is primarily the case that students get their first choice, but sometimes it's not quite the first choice, but still a high choice.
yeah.
I'd
Oh, and
like to
also
add something real quick. Yeah, sorry. So about show and tell, I remember at least in my year it happened I think on Saturdays, and I want to say that it was something I looked forward to a lot. Um, it might have been like my favorite part of the week. I'm not gonna lie, but because it's not just a course selection. It's like all of the people that will be teaching that week's course will go up and make a sort of presentation about what course they're teaching and talk about what it entails. Sometimes they'll do like a little skit. Those are always really fun. Um, and yeah, and just to clarify, the courses are week by week. So there's a different course every week for 4 weeks. So that's a total a total of around 8 courses. And there's a show and tell for every single course every Saturday. So yeah, just want to say that.
Also, like, so about the counselors, like, what's the student versus teacher ratio? Is there's like 10 to 1, or maybe even like 2 to 1?
Okay, so I just linked the relevant Q&A from our website into the chat, but the student to counselor ratio is 10 to 1 or lower. I think Wesley's year, it was like 8.5 to 1. The student to staff ratio is 5 to 1. So this includes faculty members, counselors, and senior staff. It's even a little lower than 5 to 1. The student to faculty ratio in the breakout classroom is between 15 to 18 to 1 on average. So as in 18 students in a class with one professor.
And also, if let's say somebody applies, they don't have much competition math experience, and they go in and they see everybody else loves math so much, are they gonna like fall apart or die, or can they survive?
Okay, so the thing about Mathpath, there is going to be people, like if you attend Mathpath, you are going to see other people who have a lot of competition experience and who talk about it a lot. And it's going to seem, if you are not a person who has that experience, it could seem like it's a lot of the people, but in fact, it's not. It's just like, that's the perception. You know, we all have like different perceptions with like how we interact with the world. And so if you hear someone talking a lot about something and you don't have that, it's really easy to like hyper focus on it. I will say that Mathpath is not about competition. We don't have very many competition-based breakouts. We're not attempting to help students become better at competition. That's not our mission. Like Prof D said, it's a breadth-based enrichment camp. It's meant to like widen people's eyes and like expand horizons and build curiosity and other skills essential to becoming a mathematician in the future. I think contest math has some value, but it's a very narrow window of value. And so we're trying to have a bigger, broader window of value to potential future careers in mathematics or not mathematics, because not everybody who attends Mathpath becomes a math professor, for example. And I think that similarly, you might attend Mathpath and hear a bunch of people talking about their multivariable calculus class, and maybe you've only ever had algebra 1. And that's fine because you're admitted based on the qualities that you demonstrate in your application. And you don't need multivariable calculus to do any of the mathematics at Mathpath. You really only need a little geometry and some algebra and an open mind. So that's kind of, if you go into Mathpath just remembering that everybody who's there is selected from a big applicant pool, so like already being admitted means you're good enough to be there. There, in fact, are people who are not admitted who are also good enough to be there. We just don't have space for everybody. So if you are one of the lucky ones who does get admitted, keep that in mind and know that you belong there. And also you have all these support adults around to lift people up and to bring community together. And if if there's too much talking about like, oh, I did this better and I did that better, the adults say, that's not really what Mathpath is about. So let's like find more common ground and let's build community. And it's not like Mathpath's not really a competition. And that's kind of why we have shifted the POD to make it a collaborative group event, because we don't want people to be feeling like, oh, I never won a pod, so I'm not good enough. Because that's not really what it's about. It's about thinking and learning something new and trying something new and getting better.
Yeah, that's really good stuff, April. I want to add a little bit. I think from my perspective, one of the dangers of being really talented, really skilled in an area or in lots of things is that you start to equate your self-worth with your performance in that area. And everybody that comes to Mathpath is super smart, super talented, super interesting. But we try to consistently say and model that your worth as a human being is not tied up in, not about your performance in math or in anything. One of the things I love about MathPath is there are going to be people there who are world-class chess players or piano players or ice skaters, and it's great to be around a lot of interesting humans and to celebrate one another. And so we work really hard. And again, April and her team do a great job of trying to help students feel their own worth, know their own worth, because everyone there is infinitely valuable, regardless of whether you even took this or that competition nor what score you get.
Awesome. I think if there's no more questions, I think
Yeah.
we can end it here. Um, Thank you guys so much for hopping on with us. I hope that this was very informational for everyone. I hope that this showed everyone like how this is a fun camp and not just a math camp. It's more than that. It's about fun, it's about exploration, it's about all of those things that April and Profty talked about. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you guys have a successful year this year. And I encourage you all to apply. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And it was also great seeing you again, of course.
You too, Wesley.
You too. And thanks, Wesley and Ethan, for putting this together.
Yeah, thanks, guys.